Well, good morning, YouTube, all the tubers and tubettes out there. The title of this little video is God is Good. You know, I can almost hear the ass cheeks starting to squeeze together from here. My dad always told me, if you want to get somebody ticked off, talk to them about money or religion. So, quick disclaimer, I'm not talking about religion here. I've been going on a lot of journeys recently. During the quarantine, I've had a lot of time to reflect, and last night was no exception. So I thought I'd go ahead and make a video about what I was thinking about. And a real quick disclaimer, again, is that I'm not trying to preach to anybody. I'm not touting religion. I'm not a pastor. I'm not an expert by any means at anything. But this is for my new viewers especially. And by the way, thanks for all the new subscribers. The reason I make these videos is very selfish. It's for myself. And it's a video diary of my life. And I wanted to be able to capture my thoughts and my emotions and the events and the failures and the successes of my life. Most of the photographs from my early years are long gone, lost, destroyed, faded, whatever. And I just wanted to make sure that I had something that I could look back on later on in life. And then if you cats want to come along for the ride, that's great. And another real quick commercial is I have over 400 comments on my last video, and I haven't replied to any of them. And the primary reason is that the internet has been off and on for the last 24 hours, and the water just came back on. So I was able to take a shower. Yes, it is another day in paradise. So, why did I make this video with the title, God is Good? Well, I've been on a lot of journeys recently. I was on my journey of life with kids and marriage and addiction and successes and failures in America. And then I've been on my journey, physical journey here to the Philippines, and I've tried to explain some of those experiences to the best of my knowledge and recollection, if you will, here on video. And then last night it came to me about my spiritual journey. And I think that that's probably it for me, for myself, maybe not for the viewers. That's the most interesting journey that I've ever been on. It's the most interesting place that I've ever visited, is my spiritual journey and path. I have a recollection of a photograph that's lost, but it's still in my head, of my 10th birthday. I lived in Panorama City, California, and I think we lived on Clearfield Avenue. I can almost remember the address. But it was a picture of me on a bike, a new Schwinn bike that I got for being 10 years old. And I was wearing a corduroy jacket, and I was displaying my brand new Bible that I had been given by my parents. So my parents had bought me this bike, and they had brought me a Bible, and they took me to church along with my sister. And that was the last time we ever went to church. It was the first time, and it was the last time. I never, ever have had any kind of real conversation with either my mother or my father about God or religion or life after death or Jesus or any religions, teachings, nothing. And it never really was a subject that came up. So I think that the whole Bible thing and the whole go to church thing was pretty much just kind of for show. I think it was because it was the thing that in the 50s, that's what you did. And so they did it. But I have always been a very curious fellow. And I think that, I speak for myself, but I think that there's others like me that often will look maybe at the stars or just look at a beautiful sunset, or maybe they'll look at a slum filled with hungry, dirty kids and go, what is this whole thing about? You know, where did I come from? Why am I here? Was this an accident? Is there evolution? That's what I was taught in school, by the way. Evolution. I'm not dissing that. I mean, that's what it was. And they had this picture I can remember of 10. How can I explain it? It was 10 images of like nothing, and then a bug, and then a bird, and then a lizard, and then a little monkey, and then a rabbit, and then a chimpanzee, and then a gorilla, and then a weird-looking guy, and then a guy. And that's how they explained that, where I came from. That's where they explained my existence. That I started off, or we started off as this little piece of smudge or something in the ocean, and we crawled out of the ocean, and then we evolved into a human being. And so that's what I believed. That's what I was taught. That's what they told me in school. I think I got an A. But something always nagged at me about that, and I can't explain it. I tried reading the Bible that was given to me on several occasions and just got lost. I didn't understand the language. I didn't understand. There were things that were being said that seemed contradictory. All of a sudden there's Adam and Eve, and then there's Cain and Abel, and then the next thing I know, Cain and Abel are getting married, and nobody mentioned where their wives came from, and I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense. So I just kind of like, well, no, this isn't right. There's something else I got to figure out. And so I went along, and the thing that did strike me was I did read the beginning of Genesis about the creation story. And God created the heavens and the earth, and he created the fishes, and he created people, and all this and that and the other. And what I couldn't wrap my head around was, where did God come from? Because I'm a linear person. I mean, my life is linear. It had a beginning, it had a middle, and an end. So I'm associating that God had to have some kind of a beginning, right? I mean, where did he come from? Who made him? And that really boggled my mind. So I went on this little quest, and it wasn't one that I was focused on. It wasn't one that, I was going to just do it until I found out. It was an occasional thing. And every now and then I would bump into a so-called Christian, someone that went to church a lot, or maybe even a pastor or a priest or a nun, or people that I encountered and happened to have conversations with in some way, shape, or form. And I used to ask them that question. And I'd say, hey, where did God come from? Who created him? And I can't, for the life of me, if you put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you what they said exactly. But the gist of their answers was that my question was ridiculous. And I was just kind of laughed off and sloughed off. And it's kind of like, you're wasting my time. And I thought, wow, some Christian you are. Then, in the 70s and the 80s, I would turn on the old boob tube, and I would see televangelists. And man, I never seen a worse dressed bunch in my life. And they were always screaming and shouting, and everything was terrible, and we were all in trouble, and everybody was bad, and you know, if you don't send $10 right away, this is going to happen. And it was a major put off. And then my own little casual observations, because I am a people watcher, was I would watch the people that were, again, supposedly good Christians, and go to church and take their kids to church, and every time you saw them, it was, oh, hello, God bless you, have a blessed day, yeah, everything's fine. But they didn't know that I could see them when they didn't know I was looking, and some of the shenanigans that they pulled. And I thought, well, that's just a big put on. And this whole thing sounds really fake, but it still gnawed at me. And it was just something inside of me that could not accept the fact that there wasn't something bigger and better and greater than me. I would get confused because I would look at just something simple like a frog or a flower or a tree, and I would think, how does something evolve out of nothing into that it knows to draw water from the ground, or it knows how to catch a fly, and there's little fish available for the big fish, and all these confusing thoughts were going through my head. And why is it that I get so moved by music, and why do I have emotions, and why am I happy, and why do I sometimes cry, and why do I, when I don't ever see animals or birds crying, I don't see them sitting around weeping, why is that exclusive to me? What's up with that? And I would ask people, again, the so-called experts, and I never got a satisfactory answer. And so from the age of 20-something to my early 30s, I just kind of shined it on. I just said, well, it is what it is. I'm never going to get an answer from anybody. And I was also confused about why there were so many, and I'm just talking about Christianity. I'm not talking about Hinduism or Muslim or, I don't know, you name it. I guess there's a zillion religions out there. I don't know what they all are. But I couldn't understand why the Christian church was broken up into so many different categories, if you will. There's Baptist, and there's Assembly of God, and there's Lutheran, and then there's Methodist, and then there's these, I can't remember, Latter-day Saints, and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, what's the deal with that? Why isn't it just one church? So when I was in my 30s, I married a woman, and my second wife, and she was a big churchgoer. And she says, when we were dating, and she said, I really, really want you to go to church with me. I said, yeah, okay, no problem. And so we went to church. And when I went, I did not take it seriously. In fact, I was just kind of being me. I was doing my best to make her laugh during the thing, pretty much by mocking everybody in the room. But she was very insistent, and it was like, yeah, it's cool. I've never been invited to church. And so when I started going, they would ask, is anybody new? And I would say, yeah, I'm new. And then afterward, you'd walk out of the church, and there would be somebody there wanting to make sure that you got a pamphlet and information about the church, and do you have any questions? And I would say, yeah, I got a question. And, well, what's your question? And I said, who invented God? Where did God come from? And there would be this like uncomfortable sort of silence. And I asked, the woman who ended up being my second wife, I asked her that question, and she said, "Well, I don't know. I've never thought about that." And I said, "Okay." So I just kind of marched along, and then we went to a different church, and it's called an Assembly of God church, and their big thing is they believe in the gift of tongues, that you can speak in tongues. In other words, they emphasize that part of the Bible. And that confused me. And we went to that church, and I didn't like the music, but it was really small, so I liked that. It was really little, and it was kind of a new place, a new pastor just pulled into Vegas. That's where I was living. And so anyway, here comes the music, it was all Christian-y. I didn't like that at all. And then the commercials came along about the potluck dinner and this, that, and the other. And then the basket got passed around. I didn't like that idea because you had to give money. And then the pastor got up. And for 20 minutes, I think he spoke for 20, 25, 30 minutes, named Stan, I was transfixed. And I said, "That's interesting. That is interesting." Didn't answer my question that I had, but I said, I like this guy. And so we started to go and kind of like become regulars. And at the end of every service, they would offer for you to accept the Lord. If, everybody bow their head, everybody closed, you accept Jesus into your heart, promise to love him with all your heart and soul, please just raise your hand, no one's looking. And I went to church for months, never accepted the Lord. I wasn't sold yet. Liked what he said, thought it was awesome. He made a lot of sense, super intelligent guy, very interesting. I enjoyed the gibberish and jabberish, but after church, everybody get around their little circles and gibber jabber, and especially the women. And the guys would talk about, whatever guys talk about. And so I was in a church. This church that I went to was filled with professionals. These were people that had gone to church from the time they were born till yesterday. These people were just raised in the church. And here I am. And I don't know the thing. I don't know the New Testament from the Old. I don't know how many books there are in the Bible. I don't know why they're called books. I don't know who wrote them. I don't know how it happened. And these are people that have been to every Bible study. They could throw verses at you left and right, and this, that, and the other. And when I explained to them that they'd say, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, I'm 33. And they say, "Oh, well, where did you go to church?" I said, "Right here." "No, but where did you go before?" "I never did." And all of them, this is no BS, of all the people, maybe 15, 16 people that asked me that question in our little circles afterward, couldn't even fathom that. It wasn't able to enter into their thinking that someone could be my age and never have walked in. And I knew right then and there, this is the wrong crowd. I'm working the wrong room here to get my answers. But the pastor, Pastor Stan, invited me out. We would talk. And we would talk. And he invited me out for breakfast one day. He said, "Why don't we meet at the Pancake House over on Charleston? And we'll just shoot the breeze." I said, "Okay." Went and had breakfast with Pastor Stan. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, I got a question for you." He said, "What is it?" I said, "Well, kind of got, he goes, is it a scientific question? Or is it a spiritual question? Or what is it? I mean, this guy's, he's smart. And I said, well, where did God come from? And he didn't blink. He looked at me and he answered my question. And I listened to him. And I listened to him for about 8 minutes. And in 8 minutes, my 33-year journey of searching for an answer came to fruition at the Pancake House in Charleston in Las Vegas, Nevada. I later was divorced from the woman that, and I'll always be eternally grateful to her. I bash her every now and then. We have our moments still. But I've always had a soft spot in my heart for her being so insistent while we were dating that we go to church. Because had it not been for her, the catalyst would never have been formed for me to get the answer to a lifelong question. I found a church called Central Christian in Henderson, Nevada, that is what's known as a non-denominational church. They don't put any emphasis on anything other than the Bible. The Bible is what it is. And it's a teaching church. And I became very involved with that church, and then it grew. And as it grew, it motivated me to sit down and take the book that had so confused me, the Bible, and read it, cover to cover. And I had gone through some kind of surgery. I forget. I had a bunch of surgeries there for about 3 years. I had appendix, I had my neck, I had this, I had that, bippity-bop. But I was laid off, not laid off, but I was on leave from work for about 4 or 5 days. And at that point I was living alone. And I had a rocking chair, not a lazy boy, but one of those gliders. I just love those things. And I sat there and I took my Bible and I read it from the first book of the Bible to the last book of the Bible in those 4 or 5 days. The entire time that I read the Bible, word for word, every one of them, even the super boring stuff about this one begat that, and that one begat this one, and this one, and that one, the lineage, and all blah, 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 blah. I told myself I'm not giving up. I'm going to do this. The more I read it, the more confused I got. This doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Why would that happen when I just read about this happening? This contradicts that. What's going on with this? And that went on for 4 or 5 days. And I closed the Bible. And I sat back. And I said, you know what? I get it. I didn't understand the particulars, but I fully grasped the entire meaning, if that makes any sense. And I began a prayer life. Now, May, my girlfriend here in the Philippines, every morning at 3 o'clock, she goes into the closet, which is her prayer room, and prays. I don't go that extreme. I don't sit on the floor in the closet. But I do have a prayer life. And I have a very, very interesting memory, or it's not interesting, but maybe it is. But it's one that resonates with me over and over again whenever I have doubts or problems or whatnot. My son, my oldest son, is a full-blown heroin addict. He's in his 30s. And when that whole addiction thing started, we're going back now, back to Las Vegas. He would be out and missing and gone for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days. And I would, 3 or 4 times, I would get calls from the police. I would get calls from this. I would get, go pick him up from here. Gonna go do this. Gonna go do that. And I used to sit and just worry, as only a parent can worry, because when you love your children, you love them more than yourself, and I as a father wanted nothing but good things for him and all my other 2 kids. But I was just fretting and fretting and fretting, and I opened up the Bible. I was sitting on my couch, and I just opened up the Bible arbitrarily. And there on the page, I read 3 words: do not worry. And because I had read the Bible from cover to cover, I got it. That particular that was confusing me while I was reading it resonated with me. And this is going to sound melodramatic, but again, this is my video for me, right? I literally felt 95% of the weight and the worry and the fatigue lift. I share this video, A, for my own selfish reasons, because I want to be able to reflect back on it. But I don't know what type of journey you might be going on. I'd be interested in hearing about it in the comments section. So, again, the old dog thanks you for watching. I hope everybody's doing good under the quarantine. And I will see you next video.